You ever notice how stuff that teen girls like is bad? I don't mean like it's actually bad stuff. I mean, ever since I was in middle school, I know it's, long before this. This is just when I started picking up on it with the release of Titanic. If teen girls are really into something, the consensus seems to be that it's just not good. It's bad. And I think there's got to be something. I wonder what it could be. Like maybe some kind of word that has to do with not liking women or their culture, like misogyny. That's a thing. So I've noticed, mainly because I was reflecting on Titanic for the dumbest reasons absolutely possible. I was I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't deep or anything like that. I was thinking about Titanic, and I was thinking about when the boat starts sinking and that dude comes off the back of the ship and hits the propeller and bounces off into the ocean, and how that was just hilarious and also really neat. It looks really good for an effect from the 90s. It holds up today. And a lot of the technical work in a film like Titanic, it doesn't really get talked about, I think, maybe enough. But that's not what this video is about, certainly. Titanic, when it came out, I specifically remember I was in the 7th grade, and all of the girls in the science class that I was with, because that's the only place that they really associated with me, science and English. All of the girls I can recall were like really stoked about this movie, and it was across their entire gender, with no differentiation for race, class, or anything else. It was every girl loved this movie. Some of them were gushing about Leonardo DiCaprio. Some of them were gushing about what a great story it was. But there wasn't a single girl that I could remember who didn't like the movie, at least, right? There weren't any that hated it, definitely. And then I distinctly recall, I lived on a farm, and I was in the 7th grade, so I had no vehicle. So I didn't go see movies when they were new. I didn't really know anything about Titanic. There was no chance I was going to see it before it was on home video. But it didn't really look like my kind of thing, right? And I'll admit, I did talk a little shit, but it was mainly because I was tired of hearing about the movie, more than me actually, disliking it, or even disliking people for liking it. It was just more like I was done hearing about it. Think about, Napoleon Dynamite. For the 2 months after Napoleon Dynamite was out, you just couldn't go anywhere without someone fucking quoting that movie and just ruining it. Absolutely. It's not a bad movie, but it's terrible to watch now because all you can think about is the impressions everybody was doing afterwards. There was a similar kind of thing with Titanic, not necessarily with impressions, but just with word of mouth, which was also very powerful for that film. The internet was a very small place back then, but people talking about the movie got everyone seeing the movie. But I remember a lot of dudes talking shit about Titanic and just what an awful movie it was. And I sort of chalked that up to, just the differences between girl stuff and boy stuff, because I was a middle schooler, and it was really easy to see the world that way. But then, as I got older, I got really into like media criticism and media analysis, and I started seeing like there were a lot of like critics and professionals who had a problem with the movie. And I think that goes back to like pretentiousness, you know? How like Titanic was really popular. Like it made all of the money in the world. And so obviously it can't be art, because art isn't for regular people, you know? Art has to be exclusive and mysterious and hard to understand unless you're in the know with the art world. I always hated that about art, especially when it comes to things like film. Like, you can watch Citizen Kane a million times, it's a great movie, but it's not the best movie ever made, you know? It's not Predator. Anyway, so yeah, a bunch of people were like really against Titanic, and I was confused, because like you can totally not like a movie. I want to be completely honest with you. I don't think Titanic is like, in my opinion, it's not a great film, but it's entertaining. I don't dislike it. And even if I did dislike it, like there are plenty of films I dislike, and I don't need to go out of my way to talk about how much I hate them. But that was perfectly acceptable with Titanic. And the reason I brought up the teen girl thing at the beginning is because, yeah, I noticed it a lot with Titanic. And then, I don't know, 10-ish years later, I was working at a bookstore, and I got some advanced reader copies of a new book that I was told was going to be the next big thing in our young adult section. And it was Twilight. Now, I usually did not give a lot of faith as far as the write-ups go, because that's what you got to understand when it comes to the books that we get at the bookstore. A lot of them come with like a little sheet of paper that explains what the book is. I always just call them write-ups. It's like advertising, telling us like, this is what the book is about, this is who the author is, this is why you want to stock this book, right? And a lot of times it would include language that would be like, this book is going to be a huge hit, a huge success. You want to make sure you have copies while there still are copies, right? And honestly, I had seen that enough that I took a quick look through the book. It looked interesting, not super impressive, just interesting. Some interesting ideas. I thought, hey, this will be the kind of thing that's probably popular with the average teen girl that comes to our shop. And then I gave my reader copies away to my cousin because she was a 15-year-old girl, and I thought it would be of interest to her. And then Twilight was a goddamn worldwide phenomenon. And once again, people went out of their way to let you know how much they absolutely hated Twilight and how it was the worst fucking thing in the world. And again, like, I don't really get it. I don't like Twilight. And when I read Twilight, like, at the time I was teaching high school English, and I could read Twilight and say like, this, I wouldn't call this like the best written work. Like it reads like it's an earlier draft of a finished product. And there's plenty of room for improvement. But at the same time, like, worse stuff is published all the time. Worse stuff comes out, makes it to bookstore shelves. One day I'll talk to you guys about fucking William Johnstone and the absolute piles of garbage he published in the 80s and 90s especially one that's near and dear to my heart that's just absolutely awful, called the Ashes series. It's a post-apocalyptic, incredibly Republican, and very poorly written. And he churned out like fucking, I think, 30 of them. It's astounding. But Twilight had that great mixture of being very popular with young women and girls and being just okay. So everybody really jumped on the fucking Twilight hate train. And when I say people like go out of their way to hate it, I mean like hating Twilight comes up in conversations that aren't in any way related to anything to do with those books. Like I could be like, oh, we're gonna have some Brussels sprouts with dinner. Oh, I hate Brussels sprouts as much as I hate fucking Edward Cullen. Like, good for you. You dislike the thing that the young women like. This is probably going to lead to me reflecting on entirely different circumstances, because when I was first talking about this on Twitter, I was using the present tense and the words young women and teens a lot, and I realized like this book came out around 15-ish years ago, so present tense and young women / girls / teens doesn't necessarily apply right now. It did at the time, and that's kind of weird to me too, because like it's been in the consciousness for so long. It's been a part of our pop culture for so long, and like it's still totally a thing to hate Twilight. But quite honestly, I still hear people complaining about Twilight. I still hear people like ripping on it all the time. I don't hear the people who love it like professing their undying admiration for the series. Honestly, like they've moved on and the haters haven't. I'm gonna probably reflect on this and study this more, because I really do think those are the two examples that jumped out at me the most as far as like just the outright hatred for something, and how they are both young women properties, essentially, right? Like Titanic was made for mass appeal, but its marketing and popularity was definitely young women and girls. And the same is true with Twilight. As a romance, paranormal, it was definitely marketed as a girl thing, right? Definitely a blow to a guy's masculinity if he was revealed to be into Twilight. I can remember that distinctly. That was just a very specific gendered insult at the time that the books were new. So definitely want to explore that more. Why our society is so adamant about being critical of what young girls like, and why it's totally cool to like shit on that as much as you can. And then when it comes to I don't know, Fast and the Furious, I guess, would be like just an example off the top of my head, something that's considered totally guy stuff. Like the Fast and the Furious franchise is entertaining, but also like not that great. It's entertainment for entertainment's sake. It does have some messages, but not particularly deeper than anything else that comes out, you know? They're just kind of fun to watch. Kind of in the way that, you know, in many ways, something like Twilight or The Hunger Games is just fun to watch. And yet, despite, like, them making 8 movies with about that same amount of depth, people aren't out in the streets fucking shitting on Fast and the Furious as much as they can. Hell, they've made, like, 20 Air Bud spinoffs. And people aren't out here talking shit about Air Bud all the time. And quite frankly, that movie has a lot wrong with it that I would love to get into sometime. So producers of Air Bud, I'm fucking coming for you. Most egregious is the fact that just about every youth basketball league requires some kind of school membership or, you know, other participation in the community that a dog just doesn't fucking meet. It may not literally say a dog can't play basketball, but like if it says you got to be attending the fucking, let's say, for example, the 6th grade, right? Or if it has like a minimum age requirement, which just about every league does, then the dog doesn't meet that fucking requirement, okay? A golden retriever, even if he's good at basketball, doesn't belong in the league, even if it doesn't specifically say dog. I know there's a rule that would have prevented Bud from playing basketball. That's not the point of this video, but now I'm mad about that too. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, or in some of your cases, just putting it on in the background and listening to me yammer. We'll have some more of these coming up. I've been encouraged to keep going with this, so that'll happen. Anyway, love you all. Like, share, and subscribe if that's your cup of tea. If not, do it anyway because it's good for my metrics, and the algorithm looks favorably upon that. You don't have to come back and just put on the video and go do your thing. Go to the fucking store or something. That's cool, too. Anyway, love you. Bye.